If you speak without thinking, you're going to put yourself in a position where you might have to defend what you just said violently. He was just ranting and raving about a guy who was in front of him, who I guess wanted to cut the line to get quicker to the slop they call Chow, and bumped into him and didn't say excuse me. He was just ranting and raving, and he just wouldn't let it go. And this went on for like 5 minutes. I just remember this guy ranting. And then he just said, fuck it. He walked out from the line and walked directly from behind the guy and grabbed the guy. You better be really aware, because something you just did might have just signed your death warrant if you're not aware of it, or at least put you in a position where you're going to have to defend yourself in your life. Greetings and salutations, I'm Victor Sordi, and welcome to my channel, 28 to Persevere. Thanks for watching. In today's video, we're going to talk about staying out of trouble in prison. You think to yourself, prison is trouble, which fundamentally you're right. It is exactly what it is founded on, the entire concept of it. Each and every individual that's there was in trouble or did something troubling that caused them to be in the position that they're in. But in reality, trouble also is something that you can bring to yourself in prison by something you say or something you do, but it also could be due to the fact that something you didn't say or something you didn't do. You have to really be conscientious of your words, your tone of voice, and how you say things can certainly be taken out of context at the drop of a hat. And if things are taken out of context because of your tone of voice, or because you said something that might be offensive, even if it is obnoxious to you, it might not be obnoxious to the next person. So you have to think about the reality that what you say really, you should heed, and before you say it, and think about it, because if you speak without thinking, you're going to put yourself in a position where you might have to defend what you just said violently. Because people I've seen could just throw down quick as a heartbeat because of a tone of voice, because somebody took offense to something that really wasn't offensive in context, but they interpreted it that way. And in prison, everything is magnified. Everything is measured on whether or not it's a threat, and that level of threat. And then a person responds accordingly to they feel the level of threat, and it can be DEFCON 5 in a minute. I mean, fast as hell. Just you really got to be conscious of how you speak, and that's something that I always want to emphasize to people when I speak to them. Anyone who's about to go upstate, don't be too opinionated. Don't be too talkative, because when people think that you're this motor mouth, they think you're trying to distract them from yourself. You're trying to hide something. That's how people think it when you're just constantly talking and not listening. The wise man listens, doesn't always have to talk, because most people that are talking aren't listening, and they're thinking about what they're going to say next when somebody else is talking, because they just can't wait to talk. I really understand the value of thinking and the value of listening before talking. And mostly when you're in the prison system, your life could depend on it, depending on what you say and how you say it. So being inquisitive is looked upon as a virtue in the world of beyond the wall, but in prison sometimes not being too inquisitive. Just move slowly. Speak measuredly on what you say and don't say. Focus on your company you keep. Birds of a feather. I mean, that's the old saying, the old mantra: birds of a feather flock together. And in prison, that mantra holds true. You better be really aware of who you're speaking to, what they're in for, who they're affiliated with, if they're a junkie, if they owe a bunch of drug money, if they're a booty bandit. You have to be really aware. You shouldn't just walk around opening doors unnecessarily with people because you want to get to know somebody, because you automatically think they're the same race as you, so they're your Goomba. That doesn't necessarily hold true, regardless across the board. So you got to be totally conscientious of who you talk to and the company you keep. It's vital. It's vitally important to focus your mind on your studies, reading, writing, your physical fitness, devoting your time and energy to really minimize distractions the best you can, and channeling your energy on staying out of trouble. Most people invite trouble upon themselves because they're too forceful in their approach, and they think that they have to, stick their chest out and walk around strutting their shit, and they figure that fucking out, I'm Billy Badass, I'm bad mofo, so I can take care of who I can take care of when I need to take care of it. But in all actuality, those people don't last too long in the system. They'll get cut up or whatever the case may be, and they'll end up either in the box in the infirmary or dead, and a lot of times if someone who is cut, in particular, somebody that was involved in an altercation with a weapon or was hurt real bad or has multiple hits set on them, some individuals will drop slips. The rats or whatever will drop slips into the administration, letting them know this, and if the individual does happen to get hit, they'll end up in protective custody, which is PC, and they'll be sent to other prisons or whatever. Get immediately sent out of the prison that they're in because they didn't mind their business or whatever the case may be, drug money or whatever, each their own. Like I said earlier, minding your business is fundamentally important. That's something I abided by from day one to the moment I walked out of prison. If it didn't concern me directly or it didn't affect the individuals who I was closest to, um, I didn't care, though I was aware of it, because I knew either inadvertently it would still affect me in some form of fashion, especially if something popped off in the yard and they locked the spot down, or if somebody I knew, got their head blown off or got hit in some way or jumped or whatever. It would affect me, especially let's say I'm walking with them when it happens, or for retaliatory purposes in prison. A lot of fights happen because of retaliation. I always was on point about who I spoke to when I walked the yard, who the group of people were that I was walking with, because automatically you're associated with who you're associated to, and that's how you're identified in prison. Regardless if you just want to present yourself as a not affiliate with anything. The fact of the matter is you're going to be automatically assumed to be a part of something if you continue to deal with those people that you deal with. But creating that trust in your opinion, and when to speak it and when not to speak it, is so important. It's very important to keep you safe and keep you sane. So as I stress, mind your business, take care of what you can take care of, and let the next man do what he does. If it doesn't concern you directly, then you need to live and let live, and that motto is so relevant to the prison lifestyle. I remember this one time early in my incarceration in Auburn when I was in the mess hall, and there was this one guy who was standing in front of me, and we were on the chow line, and he was just fuming. He was just ranting and raving about a guy who was in front of him, who I guess wanted to cut the line to get quicker to the slop they call chow, and bumped into him and didn't say excuse me. Didn't say excuse me. He didn't look back and say my bad, nothing like that, or pardon self, or whatever the case may be. He didn't excuse his actions. So this guy was just fuming. And I remember thinking to myself that he's about to pop off. So I literally took one little step back to give the man a little space, because he was just ranting and raving and he just wouldn't let it go. And this went on for like 5 minutes. I just remember this guy ranting. And then he just said, fuck it. He walked from the line and walked directly from behind the guy and grabbed the guy, grabbed both handfuls of his dreads. The guy had long dreads that bumped into him. And he grabbed these dreads and he just pulled and yanked as hard as he could. And he threw the guy on the ground, and he was just ripping into his hair and just pulling chunks of his hair out. I mean, all you saw was dreads flying everywhere, along with blood, because he was pulling it from his scalp. And the other guy was trying to get up, and he just kept pulling on him and yanking on his hair. Now at this point, he had his knee on his back, and he was holding down his body with the mass of his body, and just yanking on this guy's hair. And I remember the guy screaming. I never forget that scream. The guy just let this blood curdling squeal almost. And this guy was just yanking at his hair, and he was soon tackled by other correctional officers, because anything pops off in the mess hall, they try to stop it fast. And at this particular time, I remember when they tackled the guy, he was still fighting. He started fighting with the COs, And they, of course, started then pulled out their sticks and were just beating this guy senselessly. This guy, remember the guy had a bald head, and they cracked his skull open. So there was blood from that guy leaking all over the place, and they finally basically rendered him unconscious from multiple hits to the head. There was about 4 or 5 officers at that point just pounding on the guy with the sticks, and then the guy that was having his dreads pulled out slowly was taken, to the infirmary. He was slowly was pulled off the ground, and he was leaking all over the place because the vast majority of his dreads were pulled out, and so you literally could see his scalp. I mean, it was pretty brutal, and and I remember people like, "Oh, what the hell was that about?" And guys were talking. I was just thinking to myself, I didn't say anything to anybody. I was just watching it, thinking, "Oh, because the guy bumped into him." So you better be fully aware of how you move in prison, and that's a prime example of if you're not. Um, you better be conscientious of what the next man's doing. You better be really aware because something you just did might have just signed your death warrant if you're not aware of it, or at least put you in a position where you're going to have to defend yourself in your life. I'm going to end this video with a quote from Confucius, which I believe is very relevant to the subject matter. Be attentive to what you do. Never consider anything unworthy of your attention. That basically sums up what your mindset should be like as you converse and you traverse the prison system and those in it. Thanks for watching. 28 to persevere. Hit me up with a comment. Press that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Go with the gods. Until next time, persevere.